Good morning. Happy Monday to you. It's time for Book Talks. This week I read 3 books. The one I finished most recently, I'm going to talk about first, is called Lab Girl by Hope Jahren is how I would pronounce her last name. We actually have 2 copies of this, and I'm really hoping somebody will come and check it out. I really enjoyed it, okay? When I picked it up, I thought, I'm going to make myself read this nonfiction book because I keep telling people to do that, so I should do it too. It's not normally my preferred, area of reading, but I really did like this. The author's mother had a degree in English literature, and you can really tell that she influenced her daughter's writing style quite a bit. As I was trying to think of ways to describe this book this weekend, lyrical was one of the words I would use to describe her writing style. She's also hilarious. She does a lot of not just describing of lab procedures, but also talking about the ways in which plants affect human life, the way plants communicate with each other. I learned a lot of interesting things about trees and soil, as well as the scientific process. She talks a lot about being a woman in the field of science and how difficult that can be, especially within the last 10, 20 years. It's gotten a little bit easier, but in her experience, she did have to do a lot of proving herself to people and feeling like she wasn't being taken seriously, which is not just a problem for women, but all new scientists apparently, especially if you're doing research or proposing ideas that are innovative. People are like, you're crazy, basically. There's no way that that's the way things are. You're going to have to prove that 100,000 times for us to believe you. It also talks a lot about how difficult it is just being a research scientist in general, how you're always scrambling for funds. You're never secure in your job. You're always trying to convince people to pay you to do what you're trying to do. And the particular kind of research she's doing is obviously not in our society valued as highly monetarily as, say, military research or pharmaceutical research. She's trying to figure out things about plants and the earth and things like that. But I would definitely recommend it to anybody. It is narrative. It is anecdotes, stories. It's very, very good. So definitely give it a try. This one I listened to on audio, and I would recommend to do the audio version if you can. We have the print version. It's good. It's probably good in print. Miss Corder read it, but I would also recommend the audio because it's set in England, and in the audio, it's not quite full cast, but there are several different narrators, and it's not one of those where they alternate chapters. It's one where they'll pop in. So Audrey will be talking, and then all of a sudden her brother's talking, or all of a sudden her mom is talking, or all of a sudden her dad is talking, and you can tell they're not all the same narrator, and they have lovely British accents, and it's wonderful. But the point of the book is that Audrey has an extreme anxiety disorder, okay? Something happened at school that caused her to not be going to school anymore. She is currently on medication, receiving therapy. She is homeschooling, but she is trying to reintroduce herself to the world. It's not really her idea. Her therapist thinks she should get out there a little bit more. She meets a guy, and he kind of helps her start trying to talk to people and get out there again. But it's really very interesting. There's a lot of family dynamics stuff. There's a little bit of talk about professional gaming. And it's really very witty and interesting. There's a lot of description as to how it feels to have anxiety. I felt like those descriptions were really very helpful to people that maybe have had these issues, or people who have not, but nobody knows somebody who has. It helps to kind of understand a little bit better what exactly people are going through that have anxiety issues. But I would definitely recommend it. We have it here in the library. And also the last book, this is actually the first book I read this week, but I'm going to talk about it last. It's called Struts Frets by Skovron. I'd seen this come across my radar a couple of times and just kind of passed it by. But I finally read it this last week, and I'm glad that I did. It was funny. It talked a lot about music. The main character, his name's Sammy, his grandfather was a jazz musician who has dementia, and he's progressively getting worse, knowing less of who people are, what he's doing, and things like that. So that's a factor in the book. The main character also, he is in a band. He writes all the songs for the band, and but he's not very satisfied with it. He wants to be in a band, but he's not quite sure he wants to be in this band. The lead singer of the band is not the main character. He's this kind of punky meathead guy who thinks he's all that, but he can't remember any of the song lyrics. He's just kind of a jerk. He insults everybody in the band all the time. He's canceling practice to go hang out with his girlfriend. It's just not a good situation. Nobody's really having a good time. But the main character, he does do some other things musically throughout the book. He participates in an open mic night, which is a big stretch for him. There's some relationship stuff going on in there. I'm not going to tell you too much about that in case you want to read the book and you want to find out. We don't have it currently in our library, but I will be buying it, and you can also read it online at Reads, or you can check it out from the public library if they've got it. So we do have some other books about music, though, that this one reminded me of. One is King Dork, by Frank Portman. There's a sequel called King Dork Approximately. But in this book, there are two best friends, and there's a lot of talk about music and musical influences, but they're not actually in a band. They're in a pretend band, and they're always coming up with new names for their band and new album covers and new names for their albums and songs and stuff like that. So there's a lot of witty musical wordplay in this book. This one is Beat the Band. It's the second in the series that starts with Swim the Fly. It's really, really funny, and it's about these kids who enter a Battle of the Bands competition. Check it out. And lastly, this is a new one. This is by the author of Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. It's called The Haters, and it's about these two guys that meet up, or they're friends already, but they meet this girl at jazz camp, and they decide to run away from jazz camp and go on tour. They form their own band, and they're going to go pay their dues and try to make it in the real world as a band. It's funny. Sometimes it seems like it's maybe trying a little bit too hard to be shocking or whatever. But check it out. If you like Me and Earl the Dying Girl, or if you like musical misfits, then you might want to check this one out too. Sorry for talking so long, but I had a lot to say. We'll see you on Thursday for a tip.